Back again. Okay, so this time I'm going to set up focus mode on iOS 15, and we'll see how fast I could do this because I have another thing to get to at the end of the hour. But I needed food for my brains to work. So these photo choices are so weird. Okay, so I'm going to set up focus mode. I've installed a lot of the basic apps that I use in my daily routines. So I'm going to set up kind of an unusual focus mode because I'm working right now or a particular type of work, but the one I really want is for my routines. So I have a set of morning routines that I like to do, going to bed routines, and neither of those things are fun and they're very easy to get distracted and go down rabbit holes. So I'm creating a focus mode specifically for that. I am concerned because some people have reported that for customized focus modes, Shortcuts doesn't respond to you. And although I've used some customized focus modes, none of those have actually, none of those have required a lot of Shortcuts interactions, but my routines, I'll have them. So we're going to assume that Shortcuts is going to be working fine. Going to cross my fingers on this one, but at the least we can make it and I'll be able to use it whenever the bugs clear up. So I chose the apps to install based on I just looked through, the always allowed apps in my screen time because those are all the ones that I've used before, because often I'll already be on downtime getting ready for bed or getting ready the very first things in the morning, and so those tend to be the apps that I'm going to need for those routines. They have to be an always allowed or I can't do them. And I often have the downtime for part of it. So some of these needs are already being taken care of, but I'm hoping I can get a little bit more usage out of them. And I showed in the previous video, and I'll show it again, how you can have multiple copies of an app. So I'm planning to use that. So the first thing that I really want to do is figure out an app screen that will be useful in just this particular focus mode. And the reason is because in focus modes, you can choose which app screens are even visible. So I'm going to pick a particular set of apps that are the ones I can see while I'm in focus mode. So the first thing to do is to isolate those apps. So I definitely need Overcast because I'm often listening to podcasts while I'm doing it. And before it had to be several app screens away. But now it doesn't have to be. Not Pokemon. But I will have, gosh, there's a reason I don't ever have this many apps on a page if I can help it because it is just distracting. You know what I need to do first? This is not my dock. This is the dock that came pre-installed. It has no relevance to me really whatsoever. So I need to get that gone and make my dock look more like what I'm really used to my dock looking like. Because that's just disorienting. There we go. That is what a dock should look like. Okay, that's what my dock should look like. Yours will vary. Okay, got the dock in. Toggle, that's important to be able to see while I'm in my routines. Now having it at the back is feeling less useful. Yeah, Safari, super don't need that one because that is just a rabbit hole. Trying to decide on Libby. Yeah, because in the evening, a lot of times I'll distinguish that it's evening by what I'm listening to. And that has often been like, okay, it's time for audiobooks now that it's evening. You know, it's time for fictional books to kind of get me into the wind down mode and help me not think about work, which I will be tempted to do pretty much all the time. And so if I do something like listen to a tech podcast before bed, now it's getting my brain thinking, oh, well, what if I did this thing? And what if I did? No, no. Or I think about a work issue or something like that. So that's no good. Now, this has been less of an issue since I got married, and now we listen to the same audiobook, and it's usually on a separate device, which is a long story about using other people's Audible accounts. Um, and I will end up using other copies of these apps somewhere else. So because you can have multiple ones on different screens, um, I'll end up doing that. But this is just for, what do I need to access in my routines? Um, and then I have some that are like, okay, when something goes wrong, I need to access this. But if nothing goes wrong, I don't need to. Um, So the ones that are sort of I use them with shortcuts, those are the ones that I'm more likely to need while I'm like, if something goes wrong. Okay, got timery. And I was just running through I swear I had data jar. I'm not seeing it now. Where's my data jar? Gosh, I have never wanted a full screen of apps. They're just visually overwhelming. Um, how often do I need to access home? I mean, I usually have it available, but oh, books. So if I can get my so yeah, apparently all the audio ones also need to live there if they're all gonna be on one page. I may not do that because, like I've said, I don't like a whole page of apps just cluttering up. Oh, there's data jar. Oh, okay. Move it over. I know, this is tedious. Okay. If I had been thinking it, I would have, while I was eating, arranged the apps if I thought this through. I didn't think it through that much. Charty's the other one. And these are really just because I'm going through and running the shortcuts, so the shortcut supporting apps will need to be there. Not seeing anything else. Oh, counter. Duh. Okay, the counters, I'm not sure I want to go there because sometimes it gives people ideas about stuff they should do. But to put it lightly, occasionally I have no internal willpower to do anything. So I use a tally to give myself points for continuing to do it when I don't feel like it. And so that's why I mostly don't need it, most of the whole day. It's just that's the main part where I'm like, I don't want to do it. Okay. It's just this silly little point system. And I actually hadn't used it in quite a while because routines get easier when you do them always with another person, but harder and easier at the same time. I guess that's fair. But yeah, it's not great. Okay. And some of these will come up, so they need to be available if I'm on downtime. They'll come up in the routine, but I don't open it. So as part of my shortcut, assuming it's all running correctly, which they were dead for most of the beta, but now they're mostly running again. Um, like Carrot Weather is gonna pop open and say, "Hey, this is the forecast for today," like within shortcuts. That's great. I don't actually need to be able to see where the app lives in order to have that happen. It's just gonna happen. Okay. I cut my shortcuts duplicate. That's always the fun thing is when I like do something for a demo and then I forget and I leave it there too long. Music is a maybe, but I don't know. So I'm gonna have my audio things together. Um, I kind of could find a widget that does it that like puts a big label at the top. What screen is this? It's this one. That I'm not gonna do it right now, but that would be a thing I would strongly think about, especially now that I'm talking about creating more screens than I had before because they're part of particular focuses. So, yeah. Another option, again, I'm not gonna take the time to do it right now, but another option that I could and maybe will do is, sometimes I've had a widget that was a status. So, it might be of a tally points or something, like that I might have a shortcuts widget, that's my most common widget. And I had complained over the summer when I first got the beta that I was wanting to rethink my home screens. Well, part of the problem was that the main widget on all my screens was shortcuts, but they were like different ones for each screen. But what that meant was that at a glance, I couldn't tell which screen of apps I was looking for because they were just too similar. Also, I don't like this background, but I'm gonna change that later. I like plain black backgrounds. It's just kind of assaults my eyeballs. Um, as fine of an app as Timery is, I actually don't use it directly. I mostly use it shortcuts. So I'm gonna have Toggle down here. Trivet is also an app. But what I really want is I want all these apps down. I don't want them way up there. I want them where I can reach them, but I don't like a page of apps. So I'm probably gonna add a widget, maybe one that says like routines and just has a word in it, which is totally silly, but there's a lot of third-party apps that let you do things like that, and I I want it to be obvious. Maybe I can come up with some emoji that signify routines to me. Something to, like, make it easy at a glance, I can tell what page of apps I'm looking at, because I will have some of my life where I'm not actively in a focus mode, and so where it's just like whatever is happening and it's cool. So that might be useful and a good way to distinguish it as a part of my rethinking all of my home screens. But I wanted to start with this one because it's a very important one. But when I think about the ones I access directly, wow, it's not a lot. It's really, it's really probably overcast, tally, intervals, and toggle. Like that's most of it. Shortcuts. But I'm gonna make a shortcuts widget. In fact, I couldn't do that right now. Wow, that's an embarrassing picture of my mom I have as her contact card. Hopefully she doesn't know it's on the internet now. Um, yes, that's where I am in Ted Lasso, no spoilers. So I can create a um, shortcuts widget that will be how I tend to launch these. So let's add the widget, but it's not these. These are the ones at the top because it wants to have all your disorganized ones at the top, and then I don't organize them right away. Hey, Charles! How's it going? But Charles just showed up. I'm organizing my apps for morning and evening routines. Right, I gotta change the shortcut. We're gonna go to routines. I haven't even opened the shortcuts app, by the way. It just has my shortcuts ready to go. See? And honestly, I wouldn't need this many, except it occasionally quits. Like, oh, Charles's phone is a cluttered mess. Okay, organize it with me. Come on, right now. Uh, getting other people on board. Um, so here's the thing. I start my M log. That's great. It's gonna do its thing, and in theory, it prompts me on the next one because it's just a series of things that like next step to next step. Except it likes to do this thing where it quits in the middle sometimes because there's no like in Keyboard Maestro, when you have an automation, there you can say, "Don't let this failure kill the whole macro," 'cause it's macro in Keyboard Maestro. Don't let it kill the whole macro, and there's nothing like that in Shortcuts, so Oops, couldn't connect to the home app, so the lights didn't do the thing, and suddenly it's the whole thing's dead, and you can't fix it. Okay, well, pick one screen, Charles, and do one screen of apps. Just delete the ones that you can just have in the app library. Just saying. He says it would take several days to clean up all the apps. Um, anyway, I need to have the shortcut on because it's gonna die, and I have to start it over again, and again, and again. Um, so yeah, I've got my why those they have those names I can't explain. That's too long. But they have their names and they help me log things. And then it says Habitica log, but it's not really it anymore. But if I change the name, then some of the shortcuts that launch it may not launch anymore. And now you can just never change names after a while. I think it's actually gotten more stable, but fear keeps the names where they are. Um, what have you done, Charles, since you've been on the iOS 15 beta release? Like deleted the ones that you aren't using? Because that's pretty great. I need to do that on this phone, but I don't wanna make everybody wait for it. Okay, but he's been losing the newly installed apps, but you can, search for them. That's the great thing. Oh, he dumped all of his app screens. Yeah, but, you find them eventually. So, I have my screen here until I get a title on. Here we are. So, let's create the focus mode. So, what I'm doing is swiping down from the top right, getting my control center, which I have not customized at all. And here's what I'm gonna do. I'm actually just gonna go into settings because what I wanna do is delete the personal one. I'd mentioned this earlier today when I was on, but I don't want their except for sleep, um, and do not disturb. I don't really want their suggestions because now they're gonna like prompt me a bunch to say, "Hey, what do you want to do with this?" And ooh, Charles only has 2 screens in the app library. Nice. And I'm adding it just because I'm playing with focus modes. Um, so sleep has a lot of elevated permissions, but it also means it has some disadvantages, especially in automation. So, if I create one, I create filming, and I can have actions happen when I start the mode and when I end the mode. And this is really cool because, I could say, "Hey, I'm done with the mode. Now run these things." But because in sleep it's wake up, and it does things like, oh, it's triggering it to track your sleep, but I think actually only when it turns itself on a schedule. I don't think it tracks anything when you do it manually. It has not been my experience that it appears to be tracking anything when I do it manually. So if I turn it on manually and then turn it off manually, it doesn't or turn it off early, it doesn't run the stuff it's supposed to run, which is infuriating. So it yeah, it doesn't do it right, and then it's all messed up because I played with changing my background at bedtime, and then it would never unchange, and so I just had this picture of my husband making a stupid face all day, and I hate having pictures in the background of my phone, so, um, yeah, I'm disabling that for now. Okay, so we're gonna actually really set one up because I can totally focus. These are their suggested ones: driving, gaming, mindfulness, personal, reading, work. Great. But we're gonna do a custom one, and we're gonna call it routines. I normally try to be really impulsive with what my names are of things, but or what my colors are so that I don't overthink things. But this is actually gonna be in here. Well, until I change it. Hmm. I still think brown's the most appropriate one. So it's gonna be brown. My routines are brown, apparently. Why are 3 of the options basically blue? I don't understand. Okay, so a good icon for routines. Oh my, I can totally do this. Um, could be the home. Since they're around sleeping, if there was a bed, I would totally do that one. If there was a spirally thing, I would totally do that. Not loving these options. I guess home, but lately it kind of feels like we do everything at home. Hey, Ozak. Ozak said two there. A greenish blue too, but I I feel like those are more worky colors, and so it's just and purple has to be for fun, and none of the my routines are not fun, even a little bit. Um, okay, so allowed people. Here's the thing. I don't know who nil is or why they want to add them automatically, but I don't really want to get text from anybody while I'm getting ready. Calls from favorites is fine. So allowed people theoretically at least allows messages and as well as calls. So a large spectrum of things. I was on board with my routines being brown. Nice. Um, okay, so just calls from favorites. I don't really want to get texts because the whole point is that I'm not supposed to get distracted on my phone while I'm getting ready. Text from nil sounds likely to cause problems. Yeah, it does. I don't know which kind, but some allowed apps for notifications. So I'm gonna time sensitive. Um, although when we looked earlier, a lot more things are saying time sensitive than I would have thought by default. And it's not as easy to change it right from the notification as it was before. So I'm gonna mm, gonna have that. But one of the things that I always wanted in Do Not Disturb was I'd want it, especially for these routines, is if I have a calendar alert or a reminder, please have those go through, but nothing distracting. Like telling me, this meeting is sooner than you thought it was. That's a great notification for me to be getting. But getting or like don't forget to do this thing, but getting, you know, a text that's bad and an old do not disturb, I couldn't do anything that granular. So in this case, I can pick a specific app and I'm going to do that. Charles wants to know if he can just have his phone shock him if he picks it up when he's supposed to be doing something else. We could try a really serious uh tell it to, do vibrate a lot, but I don't think it'll actually give you an electric shock. Um although I've heard of like so I definitely want calendar, probably not FaceTime. Sorry, my sister. Sorry, my nephew. I don't really need Find My, I really just need reminders, excuse me, reminders and calendar. That's probably it. And because I do choose to get notifications from the native apps, even though I do use third-party calendars, there's a lot of upgraded permissions and things from using the native one. Like in Notification Center, it says the time to the event, but when you use a third party one, it only says the time since you got the alert. And so those are reasons that I use the native alerts, even if I also incorporate third party apps for calendars. So this should be fine. Although what I'm going to discover when I actually run this is, are there things labeled time sensitive that being allowed that I really don't want to go through? And maybe I'll turn it off for my routines because I am so strict with those. My focus is ready. It's on everywhere. It'll turn on across the devices, which I got a chance to test by thinking I was only turning it on my old phone, and it was already here. Okay, so we can choose our home screen. Guess I'll do this shortly. So I can share focus status. What is shared? The apps only know that you have notifications silenced. Apps don't know which focus you have on. That's good because that could be awkward. Like, what if you had a name that was just for you? Like, it's business time or something. Like, that could be weird. And when is it shared? Okay. I I have mixed feelings about this. When it was on the driving one, I took huge issue with it because I felt like the subtle message it was trying to give everyone was unless I'm driving, you have access to my immediate attention and I'm being neglectful somehow if you don't. Um although seeing it on other people's phones for the first time when it actually came out this week, it didn't look bad, and knowing that the type of focus you're in isn't being shared is helpful, because then what it could do is say, "I'm working really hard, I don't wanna get random messages, say, from, like, my Riff Tracks friends group, but my dad texts that, 'Oh, there's a Pokemon raid and it's right now.'" Well, maybe I'm okay with that, maybe I'm not, and maybe he could choose, am I gonna break through that or not? Now that it's available in more places, I'm rethinking it, but I'm not sure. I'll leave it on here for right now, and then focus status on home screen. We're gonna hide notification badges because that's just smart. Those are stressful to see when you don't actually have to. And custom pages, and we're gonna only have this one on. Yeah, now that you have these other options, my whole old segment, like the old way I used to run it, doesn't even make sense. Like, I used to have it so all of my audio was on the first page and easy to access. That was because I drove a lot, really long drives, and I wasn't gonna not touch my phone realistically, which is, oh, apparently my connection was bad and I reached over and my Ethernet cable had come out. Oops. Charles said Brittany has focus mode block annoying people enabled, then everyone can see it. Oh, that'd be great. I mean, horribly awkward, not really great. Yes, like, you could make a good, situation like comedy out of that. So I've only got 1 page available, 1 scenes. Oh, confining. It's probably good for me, but dim the lock screen. Yeah, I definitely don't wanna see the notification lock screen. Let's try dimming the lock screen because I've really enjoyed that at downtime or, wind down, and I don't know if it's so great if it does a lot, except that now my brain associates that with, "Hey, it's wind down time." So maybe it will be less wanting to engage with things. We'll see. Oh, I already did that. Okay. So here's the interesting thing is you can have a schedule where it turns on manually, I mean, automatically. And so that is really cool. I'm probably not gonna do it. And the reason is I don't have the most wild varied waking times, but they do vary. And I want the message I'm getting from my phone to be deliberate. So what I'm actually probably going to do is put into the shortcuts that I use already to run my morning or evening routines to have them change it to this and have it turn it off at the end of the routine. Again, that's always assuming that it's not going to do that stupid thing where it kills my shortcut in the middle because it got sidetracked with something. I don't know. So the automation can be when you arrive at a location. That's great. That was less great. When you arrive at a location. Um, yeah. It could be at a particular time or when you open an app, which is if you have a reading, like I'm reading and I'm doing this, back when I Had a regular reading routine because I was a graduate student. I might have had one um, that is tied specifically to an app that I would often use to read or manage my citations. Um, and automatically turn routines on at relevant times of the day based on other signals. So this would be a combination of things. But I think I'm actually going to turn it off. Um, the smart activation. What I am going to do is when I get into my shortcuts, I will actively add this to them. And my shortcuts are a nightmare. I won't make anybody sit through that. But because I have a way already that, hey, when I'm doing this, set off a bunch of other stuff, the focus mode can be one of those. And hopefully it's working because at one point during the beta, it was just shutting down the whole shortcut. Okay. So routines isn't on right now, but it does exist. There we go. I want to take a look really quickly in shortcuts. Um, for automations, you can create a personal automation. You see how sleep is its own area? It's because you just don't control it as much. It's when wind down starts, which is actually before sleep. And so you can have wind down or bedtime or waking up. And you set up the schedule not here, but in the health app. It's a little bit convoluted. So it's all the way down here that you have a focus mode. And so I would say routines when you're turning it on, when you're turning it off. So the advantage here is I could do things like, hey, when you turn on the routines, change my phone background picture, change my watch face if I really wanted to make everything on my device line up. And so I could, if I'm wanting to send a lot of these signals to my brain, hey, it's time to do this thing, I can do it in multiple places. And the advantage, if somebody does have ADHD, is sometimes we lack time awareness. And when we have more environmental cues to tell us, hey, it's time for this thing, we might be more in the mood to do the thing that we usually do when it looks like that. That's one of the reasons for my routines. I'm going to use the lock screen dimming. Charles said. Oh, poor Giles has a inconsistent sleep schedule. He's going to set an automation to ask if he wants to turn on sleep mode. Okay. And he puts the phone in the charging mat at a certain time. That'd be cool. Oh, that'd be fun. Oh, I want to hear how that goes. Okay. Will you tell me? And we'll update it. So I could do that and I could say when I'm turning off, do another thing. And because this can basically just launch a shortcut, it can contain anything you want. So well, not anything, but anything that's included in shortcuts. So, I can change my watch face. I can change my lock screen image. I can change my home screen image. I could make it go to, I think you can change like the color of the light. Anyway, you have quite a few options. I don't have any to set up right now, but I have been thinking about it. Maybe make it my BB-8 watch face that has a little picture of BB-8 on it. And it's like, oh, it's time to wind down. And other things to give particular clues. Um, Anything we can do to add to it to make us more in the mode of like, okay, it's bedtime now. This is what we do at bedtime. Or, hey, I'm waking up now. These are the things I do then. Those could be helpful. Excuse me. I really like it as a trigger for as a using this as a trigger or using another shortcut to trigger it. Just make sure you know which one actually setting it off, so you set off the right thing. And then I can access it really quickly if I want to do it manually. Hey, I'm going into routines mode right now. And I can do it from Control Center and turn it off. And then I'm in just normal mode. So that is creating a focus mode on iOS 15. And hope it was helpful and that you got something out of it. I really want to hear about Charles' experiment with it and how that goes, and yours if you want to tell me about it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Oh. Ozux made a comment about BB-8 uh, and comparing him to TikTok from Return of Oz. That's cute. All right. See you later. Bye.